Let's bring in Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. Will Tebow make the Eagles?
I'd be shocked if he does, Dan, because here's the problem. He consistently has been horrible in practice. Horrible. He was horrible at Florida to the point where coaches and teammates would fret on Wednesday or Thursday how they're going to win on Saturday. Now, during games, he gets it together. But there's no games until September. He's got to play well in practice. He's got to perform in practice. And Chip Kelly has to find a way to get whatever that magic that we periodically see from Tebow in games, he's got to get that to show itself in practice, especially when you're talking about being one of the guys distributing passes to running backs, receivers, and tight ends. If you are throwing the ball 50 feet over their head in practice, you are not helping those guys develop. So that's where this thing gets a little confusing, because Tebow has never been good in practice. And Chip Kelly apparently thinks that maybe he can find a way to get Tebow to perform in practice the way we've seen him at times perform in games.
Okay, but what's Chip Kelly doing then?
He's shown that he runs a show. And he said back in 2011 at Oregon that we don't run a Tim Tebow type of an offense, which, okay, well, then why do you sign Tim Tebow then? He wants a running quarterback who can throw and a throwing quarterback who can run. Tebow can run fairly well. He can't throw. So, and all of the work with Tom House, the former pitcher, the guy who caught the Hank Aaron 715th ball, who now is a quarterback whisperer. He says that Tebow's ready. You don't get ready by throwing the ball, in the gym. You get ready by playing. He should have gone to Canada. That gets you ready. How does he get himself to the point where he can consistently perform day in and day out, practice and in games? And I don't have any reason to think that he's there yet. Otherwise, somebody else would have signed him at some point in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's like being great on the practice range, saying he's ready to play Augusta, and he's not. But I just thought it was curious that we saw it, and then he brought him in, and now is Matt Barkley on his way out.
And that could be. But we just don't know. But I think this is just Chip Kelly's got the keys to the car, and he's going to drive it wherever he damn well pleases.
The Johnny Manziel situation, out of rehab, and he now admitted that he admitted a lot of things there. But the Browns' role in this, are they embracing Johnny Manziel, or is it just sort of, hey, you want to prove yourself, great. If not, then we wasted a late first-round draft pick?
Yeah, I think they're taking a wait-and-see approach at best with Johnny Manziel. I mean, there's a persistent belief, Dan, that they want to try to get in position to get Marcus Mariota, and if they would do that, that's just one rung farther Manziel falls down the ladder. He's got to go back to square one. He's got to prove himself. I think if they would get Mariota, they'd be open to trading him. I just don't know who would want Manziel at this point because, number one, he's got to show that he's willing to take football seriously, and number two, now he's got a separate issue that a team has got to be concerned about a possible relapse. So I don't know how attractive he would be to anybody, even if the Browns would want to move him, but if they would get Mariota, then Manziel becomes closer to a memory in Cleveland.
Adrian Peterson's situation in Minnesota, I thought it would be rectified before the draft, but I didn't think he would be there. I thought he would talk his way out or his agent would do that. But is he going to be in Minnesota? If I talk to you in September, is Adrian Peterson a Viking?
Well, it depends on what the Vikings want. I think the Vikings need to figure out exactly what they want. Do they want Adrian Peterson there and have him happy to be there? Do they want him there and they don't care if he's happy, or do they want to get the best deal they can and move on? They're creating the impression that it's door number two, that they want him to be there and they don't care if he's happy or not. And I know for a fact one way to make him happy is take the 3 years left on his contract and guarantee fully most of that money. And in his mind, however it works, I mean, here's where you have to set aside rational thought and say, okay, no matter how or why the dominoes fall this way in Adrian Peterson's brain, by guaranteeing almost all of the money he has left over the next 3 years, he'll suddenly be happy to be here. If that's what they want, then that's what they need to do. And if they want him there, why would you not want him to be happy? He's supposedly the face of the franchise. They're going into a new stadium next year, and I think they have to ask themselves what they want, and then they need to execute that strategy accordingly. I'm not sure they really know what they want.
Speaking of which, the Titans at number 2, if Winston does indeed go number 1, the Phillip Rivers possibility, if I'm the Chargers, I would do that in a second. If I can get the number 2 pick in the draft for Phillip Rivers, who's going to be 34, is going to cost me $20 million, I like Rivers, tough, but he gets banged up a lot, and I can get Mariota at that cap number, I sign up right away.
Yeah, but this is a team that once traded into the second overall spot in the draft and got the quarterback who was left after Peyton Manning was taken, and it didn't work out very well for the Chargers. I wonder how long that scar lasts. I wonder if they actually think about that 17 years later. And do we really want to take the second quarterback in the draft at the number 2 spot and trade into that spot like they did in 1998? But I hear where you're coming from. I think what's really going on here, though, is that this is about putting a value on Phillip Rivers for when the team is in L.A. Because Rivers knows he's more valuable to the team in L.A., and I think they're intent on moving. Whether they pull it off is a different thing. I think they're intent on moving to L.A., and Rivers' contract's up this year, and if he's going to be their quarterback in L.A., he has greater value to that team, because then they got to win the L.A. market. They're going to be competing with the Rams or the Raiders. You better have a good quarterback, and with Marcus Mariota, hey, it's a flashy name now. So was Johnny Manziel a year ago.
Has Winston helped or hurt himself since, in the last couple of weeks here, last couple of months?
Well, I don't think he's done anything to change his status. I think the Buccaneers have been locked onto him for weeks now. They've spent a lot of time and money researching everything they need to research and finding out everything they need to know. And the one thing about Winston, there's so much stuff that you need to look into. There's no way there's going to be any surprise over the next 2 weeks. Now, he could do something new in the next 10 days, but there's not going to be anything that's been out there for a year or two. The Buccaneers know everything there is to know about this guy. They're comfortable with him, and it would be an upset at this point if they don't take him. But 9 years ago, we were saying the same thing about Reggie Bush and the Houston Texans. And back when we actually cared about players getting compensated, outside of the college football machine, that was a big deal. I don't know that we'd react the same way now to what happened with Reggie Bush in 2006, but an incident that would, something new in the next 10 days would be necessary to get the Buccaneers to change their mind.
How much has the NFL or our perception of the NFL and GM's teams softened with red flags? Now, I'm going to take Hernandez out. He's an anomaly, but just what is a red flag now that was different than a red flag 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, I think the big red flag now is showing any propensity to engage in violent acts away from the football field. Because now if you have somebody who's accused of a violent crime of any kind, you potentially are going to lose the services of that player pending the outcome of his criminal prosecution. Which, regardless of any judgment or what do we do with this guy after the fact, you may lose the guy because he's going to be put on the sidelines with pay. Not only is he gone, you also have to pay him while this stuff all gets worked out. So I think that's the biggest red flag teams need to worry about. Other stuff, if a guy is consistently smoking marijuana to the point where he won't choose football over marijuana, then you eventually have a problem. But anybody who may at some point be accused of any type of violent crime, you really need to worry about it, because you're going to lose him on a suspension when it's all said and done, but even before then, you're going to be paying him to not play.
How does the NFL use Aaron Hernandez at the rookie symposium?
Yeah, I don't know, because it's such an extreme case, and like you said, it is an aberration. It's an anomaly. I mean, when have we last seen this? Ray Caruth, the former first-round pick of the Panthers, had his girlfriend shot and killed because he didn't want to pay child support payments. I mean, that was in 2000. If something like that would happen today, I think it would have been a much bigger story and a much bigger problem for the NFL. I think this is a once every generation type of a situation, and there's really nothing that is any different from what you'd already tell the rookies coming in about how to conduct themselves.
This do anything to the Patriots brand?
I don't think it does, even though Floyd Reese, who was in the front office with the Patriots back when Hernandez was picked, said, we knew there were issues in Florida, but we got a first-round talent in the fourth round. And see, that incentive is always going to be there, Dan.
Yep.
There's always going to be teams that will stop a guy's fall on draft day because he's a first-round talent. And if it doesn't work out, all we lose is a fourth-round pick. The only way this ever changes is if the NFL establishes penalties on the back end where they take away future draft picks when a team gives a guy a chance who maybe didn't deserve it and ultimately didn't earn it, or keeps him out of trouble. They've got the resources and the incentive to keep the guy out of trouble, to keep tabs on him, to work with him, and to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen. But if something like this happens, if you start threatening teams with losing draft picks going forward, I think you're going to see fewer of these rolls of the dice in round 4 with a guy who may be a problem off the field.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, Dan. See you later.
Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com.